You've got two sides to the story here on Keystone. You've got the bulls saying more exploration if this is approved, and also maybe lifting that ban on exports. The bear case to this is we've got enough oil here in the United States. We don't necessarily need to bring more in right now. That's why prices are depressed.
The Keystone Pipeline is not nearly as complicated a subject as some people make it. At the end of the day, it's all about politics, favors, and money. And always in the dollars is where the truth really lies, so let's dig up some facts here. Welcome back to Midpoint. Veteran economist, our go-to guy for the facts, and chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education, Steve Beaman, joins us. Steve, pleasure to have you back.
Well, Ed, thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure.
10 words or less, can you explain Keystone? No, I'm not going to do that to you. No, I'm sorry.
Let me
I didn't, wait a minute. If you're really going to go for it, that's fine. I wasn't going to do that to you because I don't think anybody can.
Well, here's the bottom line. Canada generates a lot of its oil out of what's called sand shale. Where here in the U.S., we get it out of different types of shale. They've got to do something with that oil. Either they're going to send it to U.S. refineries or they're going to send it to Chinese refineries, and the Keystone XL pipeline helps them send it to the U.S. refineries. That's the bottom line.
Okay, now, a word in there. Because if you talk to some of the critics and some of the people who have studied this, and boy, I'll tell you, you could fill up 2 libraries at least with just one side of every part of this argument here. They say that this oil will have absolutely no effect on American oil prices, zero. It might even increase the price of oil at certain points and at certain times down the road. What's the fact?
Well, I think the reality is it won't affect our prices very much. At the margin, there's not all that much oil. But what this does do in the near term is create, the best estimate is around 42,000 jobs. And that's a State Department number, so not exactly an overly biased number. It also helps fill U.S. refining capacity down in the Gulf and create longer-term jobs down there. So I think the issue here is one that we weigh the environmental concerns, which aren't that heavily weighted at this point, versus the economic opportunity of filling the refineries jobs and getting more people employed, and I think we have to come down on that side.
We still have to look at the fact, and again, you're right, the State Department is talking 42,000, actually 42,100 jobs is what I have. But that's only for a year or two. I mean, if we're going to be honest here, let's be very honest. We're not talking about 42,000 full-time jobs. We're talking about mostly part-time jobs and maybe 50, 60, or 70 workers max after the pipeline is finished. So it will be a temporary big gun as far as money is concerned, correct?
Well, it will be, and that's a true statement. However, we have to look downstream at the refineries. As they're running higher capacities, they will hire more people. We also have to be realistic about the employment rates in this country right now, where the labor participation rate could use an injection. As we look to the Federal Reserve possibly raising interest rates in next year, we need all the help we can get to keep this economy going. And to throw 42,000 jobs, even if only for a year or two at it, would certainly not be a bad thing.
Absolutely correct. Any job is good at this point, especially when people are out there looking. There's so many people out there right now who have no job whatsoever. If we look, though, at the fuel, the actual fuel that is going to come down the pipeline, and I say down north to south, and it will be going to those refineries. It is going to be exported, correct? There's none of it at this point that is going to be used for American consumption.
That is correct. We're going to export it, which is not a bad thing. We generate an awful lot of economic activity from exporting goods and services around the world. So there's no reason that the U.S. shouldn't participate in this, generate some additional revenues and growth for our industries, rather, again, than shipping that oil over to China and having them do it.
Would you then disagree with the comment made by Tim Mullaney on CNBC, who wrote an article that says economics no longer make Keystone Pipeline viable? Crude's declining, the prices are different. Would you agree that this is just not viable and we could get by without a pipeline at all right now?
Oh, I think we can get by without it. I don't think that's the question. I think it's a question of where we want strategically to build, economic growth. And I think to fill our refineries up with capacity, export oil, and become an exporter of that natural resource rather than an importer is a good thing. I understand their concerns. I understand people saying we don't want to mess with the environment, but the best evidence we have is this won't. Look at the Alaskan pipeline. There were a lot of concerns about that, and it proved to be nothing bad at all. So I think it's overblown on the environmental side, and economically, we could use the shot in the arm.
All right, that's always what we're talking about here. Stand by, Steve. We'll break and return with more from Steve Beaman. And at 51 minutes after the hour, and telling it like it is, the major college that at the moment is delivering a free education. If you want to know something, if you don't want to pay for it, if you want to know how to cover up what goes on, if you want to know how to lie, if you want to know how to make sure that you can get by not telling the truth, hey, guess what? This is a university that has got it covered for you right now. Or should we say, the athletic program. That's coming up right here on Midpoint.